Okay, so about the only spot where I'm working right now where I can stop and make a video on a break. And anyway, fortunately, I have a relatively understanding and forgiving person I'm working for right now, and there's some videos going to be out of sequence, but basically, yeah, I'm basically just a better than average paid migrant worker right now. And so I understand where a lot of people are coming from on hating Trump, because I'm really not the biggest fan of his constituency or his policies. And in the Trump versus Martha Stewart battle, I kind of have more respect for Martha Stewart, much more respect for Martha Stewart than I do Donald Trump. When it comes to some of the other billionaire people to be fans of, though, I understand that Trump knows how to run shit. Bernie Sanders doesn't. Okay, I'm not seeing major records of success out of Bernie Sanders. I think he's a nice guy. I think he's a good guy. But he doesn't have a record of winning anything on a world stage. Okay, the fact is, it's not the experience we're looking for. Nobody's offering us very good candidates, and it shouldn't have to just be a popularity contest. Something I caught recently was Barack Obama decided not to make time to meet with Benjamin Netanyahu when Benjamin Netanyahu was in the United States, but he has made a lot of time to meet with Black Lives Matter organizers, supporters, things like that, especially with regards to political movements which are engineered to marginalize working class white voters. And we also have to look at the fact that the majority of Jews in this country are not working class voters. They're not trade people, okay? Even though there's a tremendous history among Jews in the labor movement in this country, it's not representative anymore. Most of the labor movement in this country is, I would say, Hispanic. Much of the leadership is leftover whites, but that's changing. And a lot of that has to do with the legacy of Cesar Chavez and the United Farm Workers, and why you can go down streets anywhere in the western states and see Chavez Boulevard, and you're not going to see Jimmy Hoffa Boulevard, okay? The reality is Jimmy Hoffa, paid for his role in the labor movement with his life. That was infighting, obviously, is what a lot of people, but the other side of it was there was no ambiguity about where he stood on things and what the working man should earn out of his efforts. The thing is, Jimmy Hoffa was perfectly willing to make a deal with the devil to get what he wanted. Cesar Chavez, that gets kind of whitewashed over when we consider the fact that in the movement, the labor movement of Cesar Chavez, there was just as much violence as there was in the labor movement of Jimmy Hoffa. It just as much. United Farm Workers right now is by and large, a Hispanic-run constituency, which interestingly enough has not translated over to the marijuana farm workers in states where it's been legalized. I've been hearing some stories coming out of Washington State where the marijuana farm workers, who are mostly white, are treated pretty badly. It's not, they are not sharing in the wealth of that business. In California, where it's still technically illegal and there are more risks involved and that risks are shared, the marijuana farm workers are compensated more generously. So it's an interesting thing. The other side of it is it's supposedly the labor movement of Cesar Chavez and the United Farm Workers, that reaches all up and down the western states. We would also look at the fact that they really don't say much either way about the off-grid movement, the whole grow your own food, be self-sufficient, be independent movement. They aren't saying much either way. We're not hearing a whole lot from any of the candidates on that, but what we are seeing in certain Republican-owned areas and some Democrat-owned areas is they want to talk the talk of solar, alternative energy, distributed power production, things like that. I had a meeting with kind of a high-end electrical engineer in Washington State about distributed power production. A little bit more on a scientific side, but they're very supportive of distributed power production. In California, they're not, and that had a lot to do with the internal sabotage of the Solyndra fiasco, which was heavily funded by the federal government, and people just basically spent the money on stupid shit and ran away with the money. Distributed power production, though, is not the same thing as off-grid independence, and we see this constituency having been romanced a little bit by the Bundy campaign, which we'll call the Western Workers campaign, that sort of a thing. That's a political movement still in its infancy, but it's going to come up quickly because of the battles they've been fighting. So we'll see more of that. And that gets to another response I would have to make to a comment in a video I did earlier today about the Trump versus anti-Trump constituencies. This isn't ancient Greece. There are far more than two sides to these issues, and it's the management of those multiple aspects and facets of the current election cycle that is going to define who is the most successful in it. And it doesn't mean the good guys are going to be successful in this. What it means taking sides, I don't think we can immediately tell who the good guys are in this thing. And I've been giving the same advice over the last several years, in fact about as long as I've been on YouTube, that when the revolution, when the real breakup happens in the United States, just like your high school civics courses may have told you, it will happen when there is a major disconnect between the popular election and what the Electoral College picks. Now, there's two stages to that. One is which candidates are allowed to run for office. Two, who actually gets the vote. They all have to line up in order for shit to go down. In that sense, I'm advising my people that I advise, take to the mountains, prepare those places of refuge, withdraw as much as you can from the system, try to reduce your dependence on the system, but remain engaged with the system. Don't bug out now, but prepare these places, get things sorted out now. Figure out among the people who are willing to talk the talk and show the show of being off-grid independent communities, independent of the sides being taken in a system, sort that out now and get prepared, because it's going to happen. It may not happen in this election cycle, but we're going to get a taste of it. We're going to get a taste of it with the Democrat spring. We're going to get a taste of it with the white male backlash that supports Trump. We're going to get a taste of it with a white conservative female backlash that is going to support Sarah Palin, who is going to weigh in very strongly on this. And we're going to see a lot of this. In fact, we might even nickname it the bimbo backlash, because a lot of attractive white women are probably going to line up with Sarah Palin. Straight, attractive white women are going to elevate certain beauty contest winning, model looking female politicians in several places. You're going to see much more of this. And when that happens, sides are taken. A lot of times it is an anger vote either way. And there's a lot of people claiming intellectual superiority because they want to take the Bernie Sanders side or the Hillary Clinton side or something like that. I think even among the authentic liberals, though, they realize that Hillary Clinton represents corruption at this stage. I think they know this. And what you have to be able to do is weather out the first several stages of this thing in order to see what the sides really are. Because what I'm seeing, and what some of the other people on different sides of the spectrum are seeing, is that the phonies are ruling the roost in most of these organizations. Most of them are phonies. The far left liberals on this are starting to coin the phrase neoliberal. People that are liberals in name only, just the same way we would say Republicans in name only. They're getting this idea. They didn't like Hillary to begin with. They're looking at a bunch of other people I hardly even heard of as people they wanted to be their nominees and frontrunners. They have managed to get Jerry Brown in California. There's a lot of back and forth over this. Jerry Brown is obviously very anti-gun. Actually, I met him once, tried to talk sense to him. It wasn't really going to get anywhere with that, but he did tell me a lot about the Democratic Party machine that I did other further research on and discovered to be true. Okay, these people, there's a lot of people that are just plain chameleons in this whole thing. And you need to realize that. Jumping on a side, if you feel unsure about, hey, wait a minute, something here doesn't seem authentic, something's not here, somebody's taken a side, they went out and got some t-shirts made or got some tattoos made, and they're talking a talk, okay, how real is this? And I'll talk about a little bit of that in the next segment. I've got to get some stuff handled here. But no, this is not time to take... If you don't already know what side you've been on for a long time, this isn't the time to jump in on that either.